the science.
Divided that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, eyes gouged from bloody sockets, flesh burned black.
Please. No way for death. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, April 9th, 2007.
What's up, guys?
Hey, world. It's World of the Unexplained.
It is. This is Jay Scott.
That's Trent Lackey. How you guys doing tonight? Can't answer that, really.
Tonight.
I just realized that. Oh, we're fine.
We're fine, Trent. Thank you. Tonight we've got E.P. Ed Grondine, the author of Man and Impact in the Americas. He is a veteran space journalist who covered the Russian space program for many years, with his coverage carried in publications circulated to the leaders of the United States space industry. You can find all kinds of stuff on our website about Ed just by going to the button marked Guest and clicking on that under April 9th, 2007. You can find that at worldoftheunexplained.com. Tonight we're going to talk about all kinds of comets, asteroid impacts, and all sorts of things like, is the world going to end in 2012?
Is it?
All these and more tonight here on World of the Unexplained. I would love to bring on Mr. Ed Grondine. How are you tonight, sir?
Well, really great, Jay. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Well, absolutely my pleasure.
Right then. Well, let's just get straight to the book. We're talking about Man and Impact in the Americas. It's a pretty heavy work, and I guess we should just, I don't even know where to begin with it, honestly, but why don't you just kind of give us a brief synopsis, and then we'll go into more detail.
Well, briefly, what I did in the book was cover the effects of asteroid and comet impacts on man in the Americas, hence the title, Man and Impact in the Americas. Most of it focuses on the recent breakup of Comet Encke and it hits by fragments of Comet Encke over the last 10,000 years. One of the interesting things, though, I actually show man's evolution in it, and we nearly didn't make it. We nearly went the way of the dinosaurs as the Creator was creating us from the tree ape, as my Native American friends say.
Okay. Well, I guess, let's see. Let's talk about that evolution thing. And one of the things that was very interesting in the book that I read about were the copper mining giants with the red hair. And it's interesting to me because we have a lot of myths here, Native American myths here in North Carolina about giants, especially in western North Carolina. But go on with that.
Well, absolutely. Actually, there were giants. They had, if you go up along the Roanoke River, that was their trade route to the Atlantic. And a pocket of these guys survived through the European contact. Their skeletons have been excavated in bound archaeological context, so we're not talking about a figment of the ancient people's imaginations. These guys really were there. They were 7.5 foot tall. There was a pocket of them running out to the Atlantic. They used the Roanoke River to get to the Atlantic. There's colonial records of digging the bones up in Saltville, Virginia. I don't know if you know where that is.
Actually, I do not.
I'm not familiar with that. No.
Saltville, Virginia. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well,
what's it near, Ed?
Oh gosh, Let me try and think about this. I tend to think about the geology in ancient American terms rather than in European terms. So sometimes the city names are tough to remember.
Not a problem. We can come back to that.
Okay, great.
Well, tell me about the origins of these giants.
Well, they come over. They're associated with the XDNA haplogroup. I believe there's a couple different theories. We don't know if it was something that they had like an analog to the human growth factor, from some plant that they found, or if it's a genetic type deal. The two skeletons that were excavated by Dragoo and Neumann, I don't know where they are. I don't think they've ever been subjected to DNA analysis. So we have two theories. They're associated with the XDNA haplogroup. The distribution runs from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan up the copper trading areas, along the lakes, down the Shenango River, down the Ohio River, up the Kanawha River, up the New River, then fording over to the Roanoke and down the Roanoke to the Atlantic.
Okay, so it's a pretty big stretch we're talking about here.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
And also these giants are also loosely associated with the mounds that we find up there in the Ohio River. I mean, we kind of flatly call them the mound builder civilization, but you go on to say that there's a lot more to it than just one particular society.
Yeah, well, a lot of peoples used dirt to build structures. The Mississippians used dirt to build structures. The Hopewell people used dirt to build structures. So did the copper trading giants. Generally, the archaeologists call the copper trading giants Dana is the word that they use. We actually know that they're the Andas people. Andastrodon proper is their proper name of the surviving group.
So, and a lot of the records that you point out in the book, which are, I just wonder where you get these things, honestly, but they speak a lot of times.
There's a lot of research.
Yeah, I imagine so. But I mean, the other non-giant peoples didn't seem to really care for them too much. Either they were very violent or different or whatever. There just seemed to be a lot of clashing going on.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody remembers fighting them. I mean, the Ojibwa remember fighting them. The Five Nations remember fighting them. The Shawnee remember fighting them. The Cherokee remember fighting them. I mean, they were not popular.
I mean, do you think this was because that they had access to this metal resource and they're wealthier, or they're just more aggressive, or just simply different?
They were more aggressive. They were very tyrannical, and they treated the people around them very poorly. They had no respect for them.
I see. Scott, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, where did these people go? Where are these giant creatures? Where did they go?
Well, they were driven. The peoples remember fighting them, as I mentioned, and actually they were driven back to a small pocket at the north of the Chesapeake Bay, up at the Susquehanna River area. Also, a large number of them were killed there in the coastal Carolinas by the Great Atlantic Impact Mega-Tsunami. Right. You have about 6 foot of dirt overlying what's called Savannah River culture before Vincent culture, Tuscarora culture comes in. Uh-huh. So actually what happened in coastal Carolina, if you look at the cover of my book, you can see the Mayan depiction of this impact mega-tsunami.
Okay.
And there's about 6 feet of what they call marine sediment, mud, overlaying the Savannah River cultures. Pretty much everybody was wiped out there in Carolina. The only pockets that survived were the Occanache and the Yuchi peoples, very much up in the Piedmont. Everybody else was pretty much washed away.
And that would, let's see. Also in the book, you talk about colonial North Americans and the colonists, and I guess all the way up until the mid-19th century, how they would excavate these mounds or clear away them, maybe for development or whatever, and they find the skeletons. And what I want to know, I mean, that seems to be, you mentioned it, some of the accounts mention there are thousands of them in the graves, and what I want to know is, where are they? Basically, do we have
where
the
actual skeletons at? I mean,
yeah.
When the Europeans settled, the ancient peoples had settled at the prime real estate locations. So there's the same locations that the Europeans settled later on. So what happened when the Europeans settled was generally they cleared the earlier remains, and they've really been dispersed. The skeletal remains, like I say, I don't even know where Dragoo and Neumann's remains that they excavated in a bound scientific context in the early 1960s. I have no idea where they are. I don't know if they've been properly reinterred, or I don't know if they're still available for study. I have no idea.
Yeah, I guess that'd be one of my questions. That someone would run some tests on these on the remains, basically. Let's see. I think also you talk about this answer. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, how many times do you think the Earth's been impacted here in the last 4,000 years?
Well, if you go out to the Cambridge Conference archives, you can see a catalog. The book just covers the impacts in North America, and I mentioned a couple of European impacts a couple of European impact traditions just to fill in the records. But if you go to the Cambridge Conference, you can see exactly how many times that we know of so far. Generally, we've been hit by a Tunguska-type blast about once every 100 years over the recent past, and we've been hit by impact mega-tsunamis about once every 1,000 years over the recent past.
Okay. So when's the next one coming? This is what we all want to know.
Well, we really don't know. The Congress instructed Mike Griffin to do the job, and he just told them they could do it, but he doesn't want to. So we really don't know. We do know that we're going to be in the midst of Comet Schwarzmann-Wachmann 3's debris stream in 2022. You could probably, if my guess, based on the fragments of Comet Schwarzmann-Wachmann 3 that hit at Rupununi and Rio Cuarto, that you'll probably get hit with a 5-kiloton blast sometime in 2022. Of course, asteroid 2004 MN4 is also coming by in 2029 under the ComSats, and right now nobody knows where that's going to end up after it passes under them. So, yeah.
Well, that's something.
So is that the closest that we're looking? Maybe 2022. Why is everyone carried away with this whole Mayan 2012 date?
Well, you have a lot of people that are confused about Mayan culture, and they're afraid, and they're looking to share their confusion with other people. Then you have con men who prey on people's ignorance of Mayan culture that are just out, and their fears, and are just out to turn a buck. Generally that's what's going on. Everything that I've read in the Mayan literature expects a resurgence in Mayan dignity in 2012, and this is going back to the first revolts and actually the time of first European contact, and I expect that that's probably what will happen.
Okay, we'll get back to that Mayan thing in a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There was a few more questions about these giants. They kind of fascinate me a little bit, but you talk about a inter-Atlantic trade between these giants and Europe, and you briefly mentioned it.
We don't have any of that left. We have no evidence of that left. When that impact mega-tsunami occurred sometime between 1150 and 1050, pretty much the remains in North Carolina were pretty much just washed away. Anything that was on the coast. We certainly don't have any European trade. We have very few. We have a few European trade goods and cultural remains that are found along the trade routes. Of a few. But that's what we know of it. We know the copper's not here. We know the copper was mined. We know it was carried to the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, and how did they transport it? You say dugout canoes with sails? I mean,
a
little more elaborate than that, right?
Right there, dugout canoes with sails, yes.
Okay, and you have to speculate. I mean, first of all, these are giants we're talking about, 7.5 feet tall, maybe even a little bit bigger. These canoes have to be really, really enormous, and they have to be seaworthy to cross the Atlantic. I mean,
we're used to seeing second-growth forests where the trees are only a couple hundred years old. When this country was settled, there were trees here 6 to 8 foot, no problem. As a matter of fact, one of the big reasons why Britain settled up in New England was to provide timbers for their ships. The natives these trees were large enough to dig out ocean-going canoes out of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and in Columbus's records, in the first Spanish contact records, there's abundant reports of these vessels.
Okay. Now, I guess here's another question. I mean, North Carolina, for the lack of a better term, it doesn't seem like they have any kind of really, really good ports or waterways. I mean, you see that up in New England, with actual good harbors and things like that. Why didn't the giants just go straight east from the Great Lakes up to New England instead of taking this sort of longer, circuitous route to North Carolina?
Well, I guess that it took them closer to where they wanted to go, which would have been the Gulf Stream. And it also is warmer. They had the Five Nations were fighting them, which was another big reason. They actually probably initially traded to the east up the St. Lawrence, but the Five Nations put an end to that. So,
okay, I guess so. There was more resistance up there in New England against them than, say, down here, you would say.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. What they remembered at Saltville, and this isn't in the book because I recovered the tale later on, and I can't give you a dead citation for it, but I was told by the director of the museum in Saltville that they'd actually there was a remembrance of excavating one of these giants down there along with a normal Akhenaten-sized person. The Akhenaten were actually very short, about 5 foot tall maximum height, and they talked about fighting this giant and this midget. It was quite a thing, quite startling for the local peoples there.
I would imagine so. Let's see, were there any other accounts of giants further south in Central and South America? I remember on one occasion, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but the Incas, but not the Incas, but the Indians before the Incas who built Tiwanaku and all those enormous structures up there in the mountains had mentioned giants as well. I mean, was this
you have reports of giantism around the world, but these people are very specific, and there's a very much a bound pattern. There's reports from Patagonia. There's reports from out, I'm thinking by Reno, Pyramid Lake. There's reports in Europe. But what I'm just saying is that this specific group of people is very, it's a very specific pattern. And I can't really I don't really know that much. I've told you what I know about them. How they relate to the other giants around the world, I wouldn't know. Okay. I think that at Tiwanaku, they're excavating graves down there right now. It's normal-sized individuals, Paraka culture, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. And also, let's see, did they have, this is just for my producer here, they had red hair, the giants, the copper trading giants?
No, there wasn't. No, the ones here, there was no, I'm trying to remember, go through it in my own mind, but I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think what your producers confuse that with is people from remains from Pyramid Lake, and those were excavated in a guano cave, and the hair would be turned red anyhow.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Chuck. You're not descended from Native American giants.
You lose, Chuck. You lose. Trent, you're a big enough guy, though. You might be descended from Native American giants. I don't know. I can see that. Okay, you're a huge guy, man. I don't know. Maybe an Andre the Giant type characteristic.
Come on, Scott.
Sometimes I've wondered about going out to like a Cherokee football team and doing DNA samples from the players, but I don't know.
I don't know. What do these giants over here have in common with the giants that we hear about in the biblical times?
Well, it's probably, one of the theories, if you read Andrew Collins' work on this, there appears to be records of giantism surrounding the Black Sea. It's possible that this population group initially evolved there and actually went out along the Mediterranean, crossed with the X-DNA haplogroup into North America, and then prospered. But without the DNA evidence, you really have no way of telling.
I see. So
I also have the Spanish records. They recorded that among the Mississippians, they would give the children of the nobles a certain diet, which was restricted simply to the children of the nobles. So we don't know.
That's interesting. I mean, do you think you can kind of walk out there where they lived and find these same plants and produce the same effect?
I think the chances of, if they had an analog to human growth hormone that they got from some plant source, the chances of recovering that knowledge are pretty damn small.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, we've also introduced a lot of other plants into the environment too, and that might have, they may not even be around anymore.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think I'm done talking about giants.
Okay. Well, let's talk about these giant meteor crashes in the North America.
Yeah,
let's talk about some of those.
Good.
Yeah.
Go straight to it.
What is the first recorded piece of evidence that you have for any of these types of occurrences?
Well, it's from about 8,350 BC. We have the memories of the peoples of the Holocene start impacts. In my book, I set out the Five Nations memories and the Lenape memories and Napawak memories. We have the Alaskan and Siberian mucks, which were formed by those impacts. So what happened was this Comet Encke did a plane change close to the sun. It appears that what happened, I should say, tracking back the orbit, it appears that what happened was that the Comet Encke did a plane change close to the sun, that the gravitational forces caused a fragmentation, and fragments of those were the first fragments for Comet Encke to hit the Earth. It did another plane change about 3,114 BC. Again, you have a plane change close to the sun and fragmentation, and you have a general climate collapse about 3011 BC from the tree ring record.
So, yeah, you also mentioned, you bring up I forget what it is, from the Book of the Sacred Cow. I hope that was it. But anyway, it's an Egyptian record of this event, right?
Yeah, the Egyptians have a full record, a full description of it. You know, in the Mayan records, we have what we have from the Popol Vuh, which is just a quiche. It's a quiche Maya, which is different than Maya proper. The classical Maya traditions on this, and we have the fragments from the traditional Mayan records, and I've given those as well in the book.
I've got a question for you, but we've got to take a break here real quick.
That's true.
But the question that I have to place out is this anything like, you know, the things we hear about Nibiru and the Planet X and all that fanfare? Is this anything like a cycle that repeats itself every 2,500 years? Are we looking at the same kind of thing?
Why don't we get into that after the break?
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't.
Okay, well, you know, it was just off the top of my head, but I guess we'll go ahead and take that break now. Then you're listening to World of the Unexplained. Tonight, our guest is Ed Grondine, and
thoroughly.
His new book is Man and Impact in the Americas, and you can get that by going to Amazon.com. Give us a call. We're going to open the lines up right after this break, 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-YOU2, or locally 336-996-1596. And we're back, World of the Unexplained, tonight with Ed Grondine. We're talking about all kinds of craziness, impacts, giants, you name it. Give us a call if you want to talk to us, or Ed, 877-SCARE-YOU2. The last question I asked you, Ed, before we went on the break, I'd asked about, you know, does this have anything to do with Nibiru and the whole Planet X idea and all this mess that we hear about coming every 2,500 years to ravish the Earth?
Well, you have a lot of work. You know, there's been a lot of impacts, and you had a lot of people that stumbled into it. One of the first ones was this British journalist called Cummings Beaumont. Unfortunately, his grasp to astrophysics was pretty damn bad, and he was really the source for most of Velikovsky's work, and then that continues today. If you go out to the professional Sumerologists, Babylonian, people that are professional with ancient Semitic languages like Michael Hesh, he can talk about, he comments on Zacharias Sitchin's inability to use these languages. I think Sitchin is probably the big person that's following that, you know, continuing down that path today.
Oh, yeah.
It really doesn't work.
So you don't find any kind of empirical data to support those conclusions?
Well, actually, you can go out to Michael Hesch's site. What you do have, though, is actually you do have ancient impact events in the ancient Near East. You can find my coverage of them in the Cambridge Conference Archives. I had several work notes on that, which I published out there, and if you want to find out about what's pretty well known about impact events in the ancient Near East, my work notes in the Cambridge Conference Archive are your best source.
I see. Well, let's move on to the Mayas, I think. It's pretty safe to say that they were master astronomers, and also that they believed in, and I could be wrong about this, they believed, as far as theologically or whatever, that history is very cyclical. And it's periods of destruction and rebirth and destruction, right?
Yes, they actually did. But what where their cycles would start from was a suck, as they called it. They actually had one word for an impact event, a suck. It's called as a partitioning event. There's a glyph for this. It's a very distinct concept. It doesn't, sucks occur when they occur. They're not tied to like any beginning or end point in the count of days, the calendar count itself. And Mayan religion actually was oriented towards trying to prevent a suck from happening. And it explains a lot of their human sacrifice.
That makes sense. And and also the fact that they see comets every so often, every series of years, they see one up in the sky, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they actually, as near as I can tell, they really didn't have the periodicity of comets, for all their astronomical ability and for the recording of it. They had dates, but they really couldn't figure out orbital periods for comets.
I see. And their, I guess their calendar system is pretty complex as well.
Incredibly complex.
So, it's safe to say that this whole, like what Scott was talking about earlier about the 2012 Mayan apocalypse or whatever, I mean, that's really subjective, don't you think?
Well, actually, until my book, you could have, there were many contenders for when the start date for the count of days exactly was. So essentially when the Cat's end would come could be anywhere from 2009 to 2015. But pretty much what I've shown in the book is that we have an impact event at 2360 BCE, which is recorded in the Maya astronomical calendar system. We have a dead-on date of 2360 confirmed from the tree ring series, or so the tree ring specialists have just told me recently. We have the impact hole, which is down at Rio Cuarto in Argentina, and we have radiocarbon dates from there as well. So it's pretty much, it pretty much cycles at 2012. But what I want to point out is that's not the date of a suck. When a suck hits is when a suck hits. It's not tied to any turn of the Cat's.
I see. Now that let's talk about the Rio Cuarto thing for a minute.
Yeah.
The impact was at a steep angle, I understand.
Indeed, yes, it was. Yeah, it was at a very steep angle. It actually set South America on fire. In the path underneath that, Bruce Massey he's currently documenting the native traditions of the fires that occurred when this comet came in low. This comet fragment came in low.
And would this be a comet fragment from Comet Encke or just some other?
Well, the Maya thought so, and I believe that they're correct in that.
So Comet Encke must be a pretty enormous thing out there to just kind of split off and keep on splitting off and create like the mega-tsunami that you talked about.
Yes, it was. It was absolutely huge. The Mayan records, according to the Mayan records, there were 3 fragments visible to the naked eye for 3 years before the first one hit. So these are pretty big chunks of comet, to be that visible that far out.
Right, and you also mentioned something about Amazonian cultures that were much more advanced before Rio Cuarto, right?
Yeah, Dr. Hoops, as a matter of fact, has excavated their sites extensively. And the mystery was what happened to these people. They actually had developed pottery down there, and all that culture is lost. These people are burned off the face of the earth.
So there's no real examples of those people whatsoever. They didn't escape or anything like that. And
I think as far as surviving cultures, I think Dr. Hoops would really be the person to ask. It's not my area of specialty.
I understand. But the Mayas observed this Rio Cuarto. I guess if it burned all of South America, I'm assuming that Patagonia and a lot of the open flatland that's down there in South America now is the result of this, perhaps.
Well, I think mainly the jungles of Brazil. That what you have, the jungles to the north in South America. It certainly explains what was found at the time of European contact.
Right. So I'm having a little trouble trying to get this concept of the partitioning and the 4 bacabs that the Mayans are talking about, and they hold up the sky or something like that. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a very common ancient astronomical concept. You have the four Bacchobs holding up the sky at 4 points, and when one of them fails, then you have the meeting of the sky and the earth, the suck, as this separating or partitioning event. There's a new separation.
Okay, and let's see, you from the Maya records you're talking about. They mentioned that they how does it go? They plant trees or some kind of symbolic designation points,
Yes,
north, south, east. But there isn't one coming from the east. I noticed a lot of times there's one the north, one the south, one the west, and one the center. But
the problem for the big impact, the Atlantic Mega-Tsunami, the Bacchob in the east had failed. That's why you have the variation in the tails.
I see, and also this is kind of related to the Mayan notion of warfare as well. Right?
Yes, when they would celebrate the separation of the sky and the earth, they would also celebrate or observe the separation of their own lands from those of each city-state would celebrate the separation of their own lands from that of their neighbors. So you would end up with what they called Star Wars. The archaeologists call them Star Wars, but at the turning of a cat-ton in the religious ceremonies, they dispute as to exactly where their lands were.
Okay. Here's another one that just kind of popped in my head there. It may be a twofold question, but first of all, why did the Mayas think that they had to rely so heavily on sacrifice? Because they did it a lot. And the second point is, how did they get so good at being astronomers?
Well, the cultural continuity, the man's astronomical beginnings go back 35,000 years ago. So you have pretty much a continuous accumulation of astronomical knowledge and observations. Let's see, I answered your second question there. On human sacrifice, there was nothing else really that they could do. And I'm thinking that they were using their most severe form of magic to what they viewed as their most powerful form of magic. I guess the idea being that they killed a few people, to sacrifice a few people to the sky gods would be happy. It wouldn't kill a whole lot of people.
Right, and these people weren't just anybody, right? I mean, they had to choose like certain members of society, or
generally they would choose the outcast. I wrote a comedy piece several years ago. The Maya generally would sacrifice poor illegitimate children, or adults. It's the scum of society. But given our free sex attitudes and our economy, I don't think that would work today. So we could use lawyers instead.
All right, Scott.
The man after my own heart.
There's too many of them. Nobody likes them. You need to do a human sacrifice. There's your victim.
So there you go, Scott.
I guess I would be the first to be sacrificed.
Yeah. Better watch out when they bring out those obsidian knives, and
Yeah.
Well, we can always go with government bureaucrats if the lawyers object too much.
Well, that's.
Let me go ahead and give those numbers here. 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE. You two are locally 336-996-1596. My whole question is, where does this mean we're going?
Well, the Congress told Michael Griffin that it's his job to deal with this hazard. And Griffin just turned in his initial report, which he actually had to end up having to hold back because it wasn't adequate. And the Congress told them that they would work with him. Personally, I think he ought to be fired, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
So we know this thing is, we're looking for an impact in the near future, but no one wants to do the research.
That's pretty much it. NASA spends like $4 million a year. If you actually had followed NASA's performance in dealing with this hazard, you'd be outraged. The New York Times just had a small editorial the other day about it. If they ever find out what's really been going on, they're going to be furious.
Huh. Now, do you see, what do you think is our nearest?
Well, when you say we, you're thinking about us here in the United States. You have to remember this is a global problem. China.
I'm just concerned about myself. No, I'm kidding.
Well, let me go on this, because China has their own policy as regards NEOs. The dragon, which is a very fundamental icon symbol within Chinese culture, actually is first adopted by them about just before 8000 BC. It apparently refers to Comet Encke. And they've been hit multiple times, and they actually have their history and their archaeology right there, and they remember this stuff. Huh. They have their own policy. They have a NEO observatory at Purple Mountain. They're talking about building a facility on the moon. A decision on that will come down about 2016. But so I mean, we can always shut down NASA, hire Walmart to buy it. Buys protection from the Chinese.
No, they'll probably sell out to the Chinese, but
I'm sure they will.
That's crazy. So the Chinese are actually thinking ahead about this and trying to.
Russia, the EU, Russia, sure, Japan, everybody's thinking about it.
Just no one's doing anything about it.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to be another break off of Comet Encke, or do you think the whole thing is?
Well, Comet Encke's gone. It's accreted, as we say. It's pretty much been absorbed by the other bodies in the inner solar system.
See.
But we have Schwarzmann-Walkman 3 just fragmenting, so that's what's on our plate right now.
We're just going to call that SW3 tonight for short.
I think so.
I don't even know how to pronounce it. Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Schwarzmann-Walkman 3?
Schwarzmann-Walkman 3.
Yeah, have a Kleenex ready.
Right. Exactly.
Sit off your face.
We're going to go with SW3 for now. So SW3, this is the one that you believe is going to hit around 2022?
Split off.
2022. We have about 64 fragments in a 6 million kilometer long stream. We got hit by a small piece at Troms in Norway, which is only 500 pounds of TNT. But the fragments of this have hit before at Rio Cuarto and at Rupununi. And there's a tongue twister. In Guyana, they hit in 1930 and 1935.
Now, what kind of damage did they do in those places?
Well, about 5 kilotons. We really haven't gotten scientific teams in. I think it's really the responsibility of the government of Brazil to do the measurements down there.
Well...
So can we see, since this is so far? Well, since this is so far off, can we actually see this SW3 in a telescope now in an observatory?
Well, that's one of the problems when a cometary material on the outer cometary material is carbon. They're carbonaceous chondrites, as they're known by meteoritics, and it's about as reflective as a charcoal briquette.
Oh.
So trying to see a 30-meter charcoal briquette, a couple hundred million miles from the Earth is a pretty damn hard job.
Oh, yeah, it sounds that way.
Mm-hmm.
So when do you think the nearest time we'll be able to actually see this thing?
Well, I'm sure that all the governments will be focusing their major telescopes on that debris stream. It's going to pass by again in 2011 and 2017. Hopefully we'll have an infrared telescope in Venus orbit by 2017, and that'll give us really accurate tracks of the fragments.
So wait a minute, you said it was going to pass by in 2011 and in 2017?
Yes, exactly. The period is not precisely defined yet. The estimates run from 5.36 to 5.46 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that it might pass in 2012.
Well, it actually come in late 2011, and where it's going to come by is going to be pretty far away. So you're going to have, probably what you're going to have is a lot of people drinking the Kool-Aid in 2012,
Yeah.
But that's not the worry. I mean, from according to the latest calcs that I've seen, the 2022 and 2049 passes are the ones that are going to be worrisome.
Okay.
That's fair.
Let's see. What type of... How big of an impact are you expecting from
if Rupununi, and Rio Cuarto are any indication, about 5 kiloton. The Earth is pretty big, so you could hit in the Arctic, it could hit off in Montana,
Sorry, Montana.
out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, Yeah, just at your retreat. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I
not
was in
build there,
Montana
Scott.
last year. It was really nice. I went to the ranch there. It was a lot of fun.
There you go.
But don't build them.
Don't build
Build
there.
a mansion
Yeah.
out there. That $300 million house out there that they're building.
Yeah,
Anyway.
a lot of rich people have places in Montana. I was amazed to see all the movie star houses out
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Well, in the summer, but a bear in the winter.
exactly.
Yeah, I imagine so. And
Go
I
ahead,
guess
Trent.
I guess in a lot of ways we've been fairly lucky here in the last
Very.
in a lot of ways, because you're talking about Tunguska. Wouldn't that happen like 1920 or something like
1908.
that? Okay.
No, a lot of
turn
people
of the century, but
I was going to say, a lot of people attribute that Tunguska blast
like a-
to Nikolai Tesla, you know.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of nuts out there who don't understand basic physics.
Okay.
You know, and that don't mean to cast any aspersions on Nikolai Tesla. It's just some of the other people that are out there exploiting his name.
I understand.
yeah. And actually, that blast. What was that book I read? Fire in the Sky, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it went into pretty pretty good detail, and I'm fairly convinced it was not some kind of, you know, electronic experiment, just by the way the blast pattern, the way the trees are falling, you know,
Actually,
all sorts of details.
There's a Russian scientist, Yevgeny Kolesnikov of Moscow University, and they've gone out there and recovered spherules of the impactor that hit. And it's believed to be, I think it's Otskovetsky's research analysis of it indicates that it was probably cometary, and on that basis, they actually believe that's one of the final chunks of Comet Encke. It could possibly have been one of the final chunks of Comet Encke. But we know that it was a comet that hit. You know, it wasn't a UFO. It wasn't a Tesla experiment gone bad. It was indeed a comet. They recovered spherules of this comet material embedded in the permafrost out there,
Yeah,
trees.
And we're talking about spherules. I'm assuming some kind of superheated forms of carbon, like something that they found in Rio Cuarto, or something along that line.
What happens is actually when these things hit the upper atmosphere, the binding energy of the molecules and atoms is released and freed in the explosion, and then the individual atoms will recondense into spherules. If you've seen the blueberries on Mars, that's a perfect example of a spherical condensate. We have analogs on Earth which are called Mowgli marbles. But at the KT layer, where the dinosaurs were killed by cometary impact, by the way, not by a hit of an asteroid. And at the KT layer, you have these spherules recovered from there as well.
What do you mean by the KT layer?
Cretaceous Tertiary.
Oh, I see.
The level that marks the extinction of the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And so you have proof that these were killed not by a not
by an asteroid, but by a comet. If you go out on the internet, you can even see it. They recovered a chunk of what they call fossil meteorite. If you go out for KT_fossil, you can see a picture of it. It's a carbonaceous chondrite meteorite, which is a comet, the remains of a comet.
I think Dee had a question, and it's a pretty simple one, really. Honestly, what's the difference between a comet and a meteorite?
Oh, okay. A great question. Well, meteorites, actually, they're both bits that are left over after the major planets accreted, to start off with. There's multiple theories as to the formation of each. Comets, long-period comets, come from the Oort cloud. We know this because we track them back out. They've condensed out there. The asteroids between Mars and Jupiter, and there's different types of asteroids. A lot of them seem to come from one major parent body, which was destroyed by impact itself in the late period bombardment event. But then some other people think that the gravitational forces tore a body that was trying to form there apart. Does that explain the difference between meteorites and comets for you, pretty much?
I think he's got it.
Yeah, I think he does. And also, meteorites, do they leave a dust trail, sort of like Comet Encke, or is that specifically with comets?
That's specifically with comets.
Okay.
The dust veil from a cometary fragment can be devastating as well. With Encke, you have a general climate collapse around the world in AD 536 by the Christian calendar. and this is known globally. So that cometary dust low can block enough sunlight to cause ecological collapse.
What about what do they call it? Something called the Little Ice Age in the Middle Ages in Europe. Was that caused by a dust veil as well?
No.
Okay.
No, that wasn't caused by a dust veil. The exact cause of that is, I think, unknown at this point. We don't know if it's solar variability. Some people have suggested cosmic rays from a nearby supernova, but I don't think it was observed, so I find that one hard to believe. I tend to think it was just natural solar variability.
Okay. Well, so we got plenty to worry about, guys.
Yeah.
877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-YOU2, or locally 336-996-1596. We're speaking with Ed Grondine. Tell us, Ed, when did you put, this is just a tremendous volume of work that you've put together. How long did it take you to write this thing?
Well, I did the first survey in the year 2000. I did another one of coastal peoples in 2001, and then I continued to work on the problem from that point on.
Now there's now what about acquiring the Native American myths? You find I've seen a lot of them attributed to specific people, it seems.
I think you need to. I'm sorry. Native American traditions, their oral histories, what they remember to the past. That's what I recovered. Now, you wanted to ask me about where I got them from? Or?
Yeah, I'm assuming. Did you go and speak to the modern tribes, or did you research them in a book from historical records?
I researched them from the first European contact. I was going for the purest and the best remembered traditions. Okay. And so where you go to is that the first Europeans to stumble into an area would be the ones that would usually get the best story, the best telling of a tradition, excuse me.
Okay.
Now, how do you put all this together? What do you know, or can you predict, or do you know, or do you feel? Where are you living now? What's the best place to live? Do you even have any idea?
I had a guy in Florence, Alabama, ask me, if you had all the money that you wanted, where would you live? If money wasn't a constraint, where would you live? If money is a constraint, where would you live? And that's a profound question. Personally, I don't know. I tend to think Marquette, Michigan in the summer, and I don't know, maybe Camden, South Carolina in the winter, or Vicksburg. I don't know.
Okay.
I've actually been through Camden, actually.
Have you?
Yeah. That's weird. There's a couple of haunted houses down there.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with comet explosions. But,
definitely not. Well, we're going to talk about some more stuff. We've got to take our second break of the night. Please feel free to call in 877-722-7382. That number again, 1-877-SCARE-YOU2. Toll free in the United States and Canada. Sorry, you other guys out there that have been bombarded. You'll have to call your local operator and find out how. Also, 336-996-1596 locally. We'll be right back with Ed Grondine here on World of the Unexplained.
And we're back, World of the Unexplained. Ed Grondine. Call us, guys, 1-877-722-7382 or 1-877-SCARE-YOU2, as comet explosions and climate collapses will scare you too. The local number is 336-996-1596, and don't forget there's a happy little chat room if you're phone shy. You just type in a little question and we'll ask it on air.
I want to talk about something real quick before we get back on here.
Oh yeah, okay.
And first of all, that's the Out of Darkness tour that's coming in Greensboro, North Carolina, June the 9th, 2007. We've got to sell some more tickets, guys, or we're going to have to shut this puppy down. We need a minimum of 25, and so far we haven't sold that many. I think it's a location. I don't know what it is. We've sold quite a bit, but not enough to meet our quota. And if you guys want to check it out at outofdarknesstour.com, it's going to be John Zaffis, myself and the Wotu crew, Laura Placeres from Full Moon Radio, Bill Sneblin, the ex-vampire, Teresa Bain, author of Factual Dracula, Dr. Al Prophet. It's going to be an all-day event, $50 for the whole day, $75 for the VIP ticket, which includes dinner with all of us. That's outofdarknesstour.com. Check it out, because we've got to sell these tickets by the end of April, or we're going to have to cancel the event. And looks like, anyway.
Okay, but we got a caller, I believe.
Yeah, we do have a caller. Well, let's go ahead and, who do we got here? Okay. Caller?
Yes.
Okay, from New York? That's all I got.
How you doing?
Oh, Suretsky. Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey.
Hey, pretty good, man.
Cool.
Anyway, the question I have here is about 2012. He says he doesn't believe in the common held belief by conspiracy theorists, I guess, about 2012.
Yeah, I don't believe in it at all. I mean, what I've read of Mayan records running back to the European conquest, they had expected a resurgence of Mayan dignity in 2012, and I believe that that will probably occur. I don't believe that there's going to be an impact in 2012. I don't believe we'll get hit by fragments of Comet
You mean from those meteorites you're talking about?
Pardon?
You mean from the meteorites you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't believe that anything's going to hit in 2012.
Right.
I think there'll be
well, the common belief that in the out there is that 2012 is where it's like a spiritual revolution.
Yeah, exactly.
The world ending.
I think there'll be a spirit. I think there will be a spiritual evolution. I do believe that the Mayan people will be restored to dignity. Yes.
Right, because the coincident evidence I've come across, and you can, obviously that's what I'm calling to get your point of view on it, is that there are scientific studies that
well, a lot of people pretend to be scientists,
like the lowering of the or is it the speeding up of the Schumann cavity resonance of the Earth?
I'm sorry.
The heartbeat.
I couldn't quite hear you there. You were saying the. Could you repeat that again for me here? I couldn't quite hear you.
It's called the Schumann cavity resonance. The heartbeat, Schumann resonance of the Earth.
Well, like I say, there's a lot of people that pretend to be scientists, but
that pretend to be. So there's no such thing as a Schumann resonance.
I really can't comment on it. I don't know, but generally, since I'm pretty familiar with science, I tend to think that this is maybe just something that somebody invented.
Really?
There's a lot of people that are afraid for a lot of different reasons out there, and there's a lot of con men that will exploit their fears for their own purposes.
Is the magnetic field?
Okay. They're predicting what, a magnetic pole reversal, or?
Well, they're saying that the diminishing magnetic field of the Earth it's diminishing.
We've had shifts in the magnetic field of the Earth multiple times over the last 6 million years that mankind has been on the planet Earth, and so far we haven't seen any bad effects from it. So I'm not particularly worried about that.
But you know of the diminishing magnetic field, though?
I've heard the magnetic field's diminishing, yes.
Right. So the point that I'm making then is just that what the people have been talking about is that the Schumann resonance is raising, and it's supposed to get to a certain point at 2012, around 2012, and it's the same thing for the diminishing magnetic field, is that it's supposed to do the same thing.
Well, as I said, if you go back in the record, the archaeological record of man on Earth, we've been here for 6 million years. There's been multiple changes in the Earth's magnetic field, and so far none of them appear to have hurt man in any way.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, man.
No problem.
All right, have a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That buzz is...
Yeah, I'm really sorry about the buzz.
The phone buzz. I've got to get that line fixed there. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Our technicians have been working on it for weeks.
Right. Now we unplugged...
Technicians being me, Scott, Chuck, and D.
Yeah, we've unplugged everything. We've rerouted everything. It's got to be the actual line or the jack or something for that. So, I don't know what it is. So
I have to apologize.
You can't hear that on your end, though, can you?
He can't.
No, he can't? Okay.
Broadcast.
Ed, you can't hear that big, loud buzz noise.
I did, yes.
You did?
But that's why I was having trouble.
Oh, great. Now it's going...
was talking about. I wanted to say that, we live in a age of modern electronics and navigation devices and the rest of it, so what the effects of a shift in the magnetic field of the Earth will be the next time it occurs. Might be some problems, but I don't think large numbers of people will die, and I'm sure we'll be pretty prepared for it when it occurs.
Yeah, I was actually going to point out, maybe I'm wrong on this, but
Chuck's attempting surgery.
Oh crap! I don't know what's going on, but because of the magnetic poles, I mean, there would be a larger number of meteorites, for example, that would hit those areas on the Earth, right?
No, absolutely not. One of the things that you have is different con men will exploit old American spiritualist geology, where they propose that there were pole shifts that were caused by ice accumulation, and a lot of people will try and tie that into shifts in the magnetic poles, which is a different phenomenon. First of all, the first is entirely imaginary. You can't have enough ice accumulating to shift the Earth's poles. It doesn't happen.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. The physics, we know how much mass it would take to actually cause a shift in the crust of the Earth, how much energy is involved, and accumulation ice is insufficient to cause that.
So, would you consider yourself an evolutionist?
An
atheist?
Actually, I practice Native American religions, and in our view, the Creator, if the Creator fashioned man out of a tree ape, that's the Creator's decision. Who am I to question it?
That's interesting. I don't think we've gotten somebody on the show who's a practitioner of Native American beliefs.
Well, I really shouldn't. I really am not. I've just begun on the path, so I'm not really the person to talk to.
Well,
where did you come to this path from?
Actually, going out to powwow and selling my books, I learned there at powwow, and I prefer to leave it at that. It's really private matter.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I can't pick on you tonight.
Nope.
All right, I want to hear a story about. I want to hear the story about aliens that we talked about on the break.
Okay, this was great. I went to an Impact conference in the year 2003, and I was at lunch with the director of the Vatican Observatory. And I'm sitting there talking to him about impact events, and for some reason, out of the clear blue sky, he asked me if I believe in extraterrestrial intelligence, and he's very persistent in this, and I can't figure out why. And I saw the work from the Disclosure Project, where a lawyer in Washington had petitioned the Vatican to be allowed to examine their archives for evidence of alien visitation. And that explains why the Vatican... the director of the Vatican Observatory was asking me about that at lunch.
That's pretty odd.
Those crazy Catholics, you said it.
I mean, do you believe in?
It was strange for me. It's certainly one of the last things that I expected. I told him about. I'd heard they asked Billy Graham if he believed in aliens, and he said, "I hope that they're out there so I can preach the word of Jesus Christ to them."
Amen, Billy. Amen, Billy.
Well,
that's all I got to say.
I think that was an interesting attitude.
That is an interesting attitude.
I often wonder if they, what prophets would be sent to an alien people. I'm sure that they would have their own religions. I
don't see why.
They, it's maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised.
That would be really, really weird. Somehow,
It'll be a different view on things.
Yeah, it'd be very.
One of the things that bothers me, and particularly now, and I find offensive, is the use that some people make of prophets that were sent to the peoples here in the Americas, and some of the bizarre nonsense that's spewed.
Can we say the Mormons?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we might as well just go ahead and say
that. Joe Smith, the Angel Morani.
You crazy.
Please, these prophets were sent here.
Yeah.
And that seems a bit of a travesty to Christianity. When you think about, at least with the conquistadors back in the day, and they came down to the native peoples, and basically they're just plundering them for their gold, But then they sent these sort of guys that just sort of half told the story enough for the native people to believe it or sort of incorporate it into their religious beliefs. But I mean, was it really a conversion after all, or was it just a way of further subjugating them? I don't know.
Well, some of the priests were actually protective of the people and were absolutely appalled at what the conquistadors did. On the other hand, some of the priests were their colleagues and collaborators. So I suppose that Christians are like anybody else. You find some good people and you find some bad people.
Oh yeah, well that's true.
I'm just surprised, a man of your intelligence, with your research ability and your digging for the truth, that you haven't found Christianity as your way.
Well, I was born and raised as a Southern Baptist. I've just found the Native American spiritual tools to be particularly fulfilling for me.
I just mean historical evidence-wise.
Oh, you mean Jesus as a historical?
No, not only as a historical figure, but just in reference to the different traditions of the Jewish people versus the Romans, and the way that the book was passed down, and all of the of the translations we have, the number of extant manuscripts that we have that validate that.
Well, as I said, I've just found the Native American spiritual tools to be...
I'm sorry, I'm fishing. You know me.
To be useful in my own life. It's
Okay, all right, fair enough. We'll move on. We'll move on. Go ahead, Trent.
Well, let's see. Well, let's go back to the topic at hand. All right, we've talked basically about the Mayas and peoples of South America. We've talked about giants and North America. What about the Western native peoples? When I mean the ones, the Anasazi, Chaco Canyon, the people who built Mesa Verde, those people.
Well, I didn't cover the Western traditions of the Navajo, Zuni, Hopi people in my book, and there's a very specific reason for that, which is their elders hold their traditions, their tribes, because their traditions have been so abused by Europeans. They generally tell people what they wish to share. They generally share with people what they wish to share with them, and that specifically, and they'll share with other people their impact lore when they feel it's appropriate.
Do you believe that there's been the caliber of impacts in Western North America, like the Mega-Tsunami, like Rio Cuarto, Rupa Nuni? Did I say that right?
Were there impacts in Western North America?
Yeah, did they have the caliber that,
I'll just leave it. I'll say yes, and we have to leave it at that.
Okay, all right. That was just something I was kind of curious about.
You can't share some of these things.
It's not my place.
Okay.
Oh.
Well,
that says a lot for them to take you into their fold, into such a way to share with you secrets that that aren't revealed to outsiders.
Well, I'm very honored to have. I'm very honored to the extent that that's been done. Yes.
Yeah, it's very, very cool that they would keep them and hold them sacred to themselves.
Yeah. Well, there are young people in the Hopi, Zuni, and Navajo peoples that are better astronomers than I am, are fluent in the languages, and know their traditions far better than I ever will. It's up to them. It's their task now.
Oh, understandable. Well, let's talk about, all right, with that in mind, let's talk about moving a little bit further south. Let's talk about the Mississippian cultures and the Hopewells. We haven't covered those.
Well, the Hopewell evolved from the Andast culture, the Adena culture. Essentially, there's a revolt among the peoples that these people are abusing. And you have an emergence of a far more democratic forms of government. You also have the general technologies and of crops and farming. It's not corn, but a lot of it's groundnut up in Ohio, which they use to feed themselves. And you have a wonderful trade network, peaceful interrelationships. It's generally a wonderful culture. It's brought to an end by the climate collapse of 8536, and that same climate collapse, which was caused by dust from a Comet Encke, also drive the Algonquin faction of the Shawnee down into Hopewell lands. The Hopewell are actually the Shawnee divisions. Metkosh, Siligathi, Pekawitha, Kishpoko Pekawitha, Thowagili. That's the initial peoples that you have there, and you have them afterwards. The Algonquin faction comes down, migrates down from Canada, and it absorbs or joins with those existing peoples, and the government emerging afterwards is different.
So
Mississippians is actually it actually appears to be Oaxacan. I have trouble with the name.
Are you talking about that region in Mexico, Oaxaca?
Yeah.
Oaxaca, something like that?
It's from northeast Mexico. They migrate from that region. They're under attack by the ancients of the land, as they're known. I have that in the book there. In the NATCHEZ, remember their ancestors coming north and bringing bringing the Mississippian technologies with them.
That's pretty cool. We've got another caller on the line. It's Laura. Hey, Laura, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Fantastic. You got some questions for Ed?
Yeah. I was wondering if you've done any research on. There's a particular book called "He Walked the Americas."
Yes. Yeah. Lee,
are you familiar with that?
Hey, what is it? What was her name? Yeah, actually, I just recently looked at that, and again, as I say, there are prophets which were sent to the peoples here, and what I read that book, I mean, I'm looking at her taking some of the most corrupted versions of those traditions, and then assigning them all to be a reincarnated Jesus Christ walking the Americas. This is nonsense. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mormon practice is a fine practice, but when they interfere with the people's histories, I have to say something here.
I understand.
It's really offensive to have your prophet claimed by another people. It just really
offensive.
Is bothersome.
We haven't started down that path yet, Ed. Thanks for calling, Laura.
You have anything else for us?
No. I was raised in that religion, so. But everybody has their own opinion. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Offensive.
Offensive. Yeah, just went right
Ed,
there.
You haven't caught us on a good night yet. Go ahead. I'm staying out of this. Really, I'm behaving tonight.
Are you now?
I am. I'm going to try.
Okay, I see that.
Well, on to the next one. Hey?
Yeah,
I'm going to try.
Let's see. You were talking about the Mississippians and related to the Oaxacans.
Oh yes. The ancient word of the NATCHEZ, complete, is one of the appendices of Man and Impact in the Americas, and they remember their ancestors coming north from northeast Mexico. It's Wasatecan, as a matter of fact.
Wasatecan?
Yeah. Damn it. Excuse me, I have to look it up myself. Anyway.
I have.
You have what?
Have a little trouble pronouncing the names.
Yeah, it's quite a tongue twister. Here we go. Yeah, you have that, and you have Totonac as well. Totonac cultures emerging, but they end apparently wiped out by
the climate collapse.
No, actually, hurricane.
Oh.
The Totonac influenced cultures in North America are pretty much devastated by a hurricane. Huasteca, excuse me, actually is what it is. H-A-U-S-T-E-C-A. Huasteca. I keep on calling them, Huasteca.
Yeah.
It's Spanish pronunciation.
Yeah. Let's see. There was also another recurring theme. I haven't even brought it up yet. How much time do we have to break for a chat? Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll have enough time for this. The trade network and the use of hallucinogenics, and you go into great detail about a number of these substances and plants involving their religious customs, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, I do. A lot of the trade networks are unexplained archaeologically, and they don't consider trade in salt, trade in medicines. They just don't consider it. Our contemporary archaeologists, so it's a mystery to them as to why these people are trading over these vast distances.
These and you also mentioned, like, for example, the pipes that they find. They assume that they're only used for tobacco.
Exactly. They're very seldom that you have any analysis done. Actually, the oils that remain in the pipes.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that they would overlook something like that. Really.
Yeah. You also have to remember that Native American tobacco is very, very, very strong. It's enough to cause a heart attack and death among many people.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, Scott. Listen that up, you know.
I'm all about some big tobacco. All right.
Those American spirits, man.
You're about big tobacco though too, Ed. You smoke cigarettes, don't you?
Yeah. Actually, I've got one in my hand and getting ready to light it up.
There you go. One of the last great things left in America. You can still smoke a cig. Well, depending on what state you're in.
Yeah. Here in North Carolina, it's more like a pastime than a.
It is.
Than a
Yeah,
choice.
you're raised with a cigarette in your hand.
Well, coming from Virginia, it's
same way.
It's mandatory.
Oh yeah. We've got R.J. Reynolds. You guys have Philip Morris.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Apparently, in Eastern Europe, it's an endurance sport.
Oh man.
But what was that? Where was I going? with hallucinogenics.
We're talking Native American medicines.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Peyote. Oh, I'm sorry. That's
So I mean,
that's out west.
How many are we talking about? I mean, it's more than just simply like marijuana and.
Well, yeah, you have a snake root, yopon, and you have psilocybin as well. Actually, the Native Americans, some Native American peoples use wakana. They had their own marijuana here, which is the Native American marijuana, and some peoples would put wakana in their knickknack. That's not where I'm at. But if anybody wants to, if any Native American wants to, they have an absolute right to do so.
Well, yeah, if it fulfills their religious, practices.
I'm sorry. What was that last statement?
Ed,
what was the last statement? I didn't hear you.
If anybody wanted to put wakana in their knickknack, they have an absolute right to do so.
Maybe not. It depends on.
Absolutely.
He's talking about as far as
as far as the Native Americans are concerned, of course. I'm talking about as far as the United States law is concerned.
Oh yeah, anybody.
Probably. As far as the United States law goes, it's the same thing that regards peyote regards wakana and knickknack. The government has no right to interfere.
Actually, there's a case that's actual good case law from the Supreme Court that says the government does, and the only reason I'm telling you this is because I am a lawyer, and it's a very. Yeah, it's a very old, well, not a very old case, but it's a couple decades ago, so it stood the test of time.
I believe that the decision came down in that essentially they have a right, but they don't.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Pretty interesting. Anyway, Chuck.
We'll leave it at
needless
that.
to say,
Go ahead.
you probably should stay away from it, Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck, put the pipe down, Chuck. Put the pipe down. We know how you are, you hippie.
Yeah.
Chuck, put the pipe down.
You want try? Okay.
Chuck is our hippie producer.
Yeah.
We give him a hard time a lot.
That's not related to Giants.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's time for our last break of the evening, guys.
It's that time. Go ahead. Hello, fine lads and lasses. We're back here on World of the Unexplained. Sorry, that was funny.
What was that?
I'm sorry. I watched Rob Roy last night.
No, you just thought you were Duncan MacLeod for a
minute.
No,
I watched Rob Roy last night. It was good. Leanne had never seen the film.
It's a good movie,
yes. And yeah, we watched it last night.
All right.
That's why I was lads and lasses. Anyway, 877-722-7382, 877-SCARE-YOU2, or locally 336-996-1596. I want to mention the title of the book, Man and Impact in the Americas by E.P. Grondine. And you can pick this up by going to Amazon.com. Now, you can check out a lot of the free stuff that Ed's got available online from some of his earlier writings by going to our website, worldoftheunexplained.com, and clicking on the Guests button at the top of the page. And that's going to take you, he's the first guy up there. You'll see him with a unique picture that he sent me from burnt corn. Tell me a little bit about that real quick before we get into our last topic.
Well, burnt corn, Alabama. It's kind of like if you don't know, you weren't meant to know. If you know, you were meant to know. I guess that's about what I can say about it. I'd like
I'll have
to say
to Google
all the folks down there, and I look forward to visiting again.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Fair enough.
Last topic, let us talk about NASA. Let's talk about
the moon conspiracy.
The
moon landing conspiracy of 1969.
Let's go with that, Ed.
There is a great great joke involved in this, which is actually kind of sad. When that British guy, and I can't remember his name, do you remember it?
Yeah. We're going to go with Marcus Allen.
Okay, when he first went out, NASA told him that they were using regular stock film to take their photos. And he did an entire photo analysis based on that and concluded NASA hadn't landed on the moon. Well, actually, what NASA flew to the moon was reconnaissance film. If you take stock photographic film and take it into space, into those heat and cold extremes in the vacuum, it disintegrates. You can't use it. What they flew was recon film, and that explains pretty much everything that he observed. Was a very good film.
What about passing through the Van Allen belt, the radioactive belt?
Well, the radiation in space is a real problem. The astronauts had a heat shield. They were 3 days from Earth, so if there was significant solar activity, they could just bring them back home. But yeah, you can go on through. Oh. I've actually met a couple of people, Dr. Aldrin, Harrison Schmitt, Jack Schmitt, at the buffet, covering various events, and had hors d'oeuvres with them. Yes, we really did walk on them. They really did walk on the moon. Man, we here in the U.S. really sent guys to the moon.
Oh, cool.
Oh, well.
God bless America.
Yep. And let's see, what was I going to say? The Russians had sent probes or scientific probes to the moon.
Lunicod, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a robot that was running around up there. Yeah, and they brought back samples.
71.
As a matter of fact, I'm sorry I can't remember the gentleman's name, with Vernadsky Institute, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. I met one of the principal figures in that.
That's pretty cool. Well, let's talk about NASA. For example, do you think we're going to send people to Mars one day, or do you think that's just a big pie in the sky talk?
I think we will send people to Mars one day, but we really need to deal with this impact hazard first. And I believe that actually one group of NASA engineers down at NASA's Langley Center out there by Hampton, Virginia, did an analysis of this problem and actually determined that the best way of finding an impact or something headed our way was with instruments placed on the moon. And I'm very much hoping that NASA will pursue this path. Certainly the Chinese appear to be doing that. We'll see.
What do you think? What do you think about these supposed smokestacks on the moon?
I don't know what you're referring to, so I really have no comment.
Oh well,
yeah, it's some kind of picture of
the picture. It looks like a smokestack actually on the other side of the moon,
on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, some kind of strip mining. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. I'm just throwing that out there.
Around. But it would seem to be a good idea to put observation points up on the moon because you don't deal with the kind of atmospheric conditions that you do here on the planet Earth.
Exactly, and finding these things will require a lot more power and data processing and communications. If you want the best, that's probably the best thing to do. Second best is putting something in orbit in deep space, and there's been proposals for that. I'm cheap, but when it comes to survival of mankind, I'm not that cheap.
Well, that's fair. When you're talking about deep space, are you talking about something that's just floating out there like a probe or something that's more stationary?
Yeah, very far out. The best that you can do is a moon-based facility. It gives you 6 months more warning about something barreling in. Its second best is a sizable telescope out. They've talked about L3, Earth-Moon libation points and that.
Well, I guess, okay, here's a case scenario. Okay, they build the observation points on the moon. Bam, they see, SW3, and it's coming right at us. What are the alternatives? What are their plans?
Russia, the best thing you can do is fire up. It depends upon the size of the fragment. Actually, if you can find it early enough, you can send up an inert, what they call a kinetic impact, or just an inert mass of like copper, like what they used for deep impact when they impacted the comet fragment. Something like that, except bigger. If you hit it far enough out, if you get an early enough warning, you can hit it far enough out so that you can causes a large change in its course later on. That's if you got an early enough warning. That's one of the reasons why it's so important to have the best facilities possible to find these things. The next coming down is a standoff nuclear explosion right now. You fire off a nuclear warhead off the surface of the impactor. There's work being done on solid-state heat-capacity lasers. You could you could use a nuclear electric power supply. You launch that, you use it to run an ion drive to get out to what's headed your way. Then you take the electricity and use it to fire a laser. You ablate the surface of the impactor, and it causes a jet reaction. Just a regular Newtonian jet reaction. You're using the surface of the impactor's own surface as fuel for the reaction.
And, gosh, I can't remember where I read this. I think science.com or someplace like that. And I'm not even sure I got the details right. But a number of former astronauts were talking about maybe developing some sort of
space tractor, yeah.
Yeah, to kind of push it out or move it out of orbit from us.
That's one way. I think I was just at the Planetary Defense Conference in Washington. Another thing that's proposed, which is far more feasible, is a kinetic impactor. One of the current difficulties is determining beta, which is the total momentum that's imparted to an object by hitting it. And it varies depending upon if you're dealing with an iron asteroid, a stony iron, or a stone asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know those numbers yet. NASA has to get them.
It would seem kind of difficult to how would you determine way out there in deep space something kind of an ass? So, okay, that's a stony asteroid or that's stony iron.
By the spectra.
Oh, by the trail that it leaves?
By the light that's reflected from it.
Oh, I see.
You just same way that you get a spectrum from anything else, they get spectrum from them.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems pretty simple then.
Yeah.
Well,
not pretty simple, yeah.
Not to us. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna head off. We got a couple of things to talk about here. We're gonna give you a couple of more minutes for the last word, Ed.
Final word, Ed.
Well, I want to say the Congress has told the NASA administrator to deal with this problem. The NASA administrator has told the Congress that he can but doesn't want to. If you're worried about something hitting, give Mike Griffin a call. You can get the NASA switchboard number from DC Directory Information and ask him what the hell he's going to do about it.
That's a great idea. Yeah,
wow. That was a good final word.
Yeah, you get that guy's Mike Griffin. Call him. Tell him, hey.
And the name of the book again. The author of the book again is E.P. Grondine, or we just call him Ed.
Yeah.
The name of the book,
Man and Impact in the Americas. You can find this book on Amazon.com. Don't forget to check out his other writings on Astronautics.com. Mark Wade's Astronautica Encyclopedia. Am I right about that?
Mark Wade's Encyclopedia Astronautica, and you can find some of my other works on impact events at the Cambridge Conference Archives, at Bob Cobras at University of Georgia, or at Liverpool John Moore University site.
Wow.
And my book is also available through interlibrary loan from select depositories, so you can read it that way as well.
Okay, great.
So,
it's great talking with you guys.
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for the book, too.
All right.
It's a good read.
All right. Thanks, Ed. Have a nice night.
All right.
And safe travels.
Okay.
Thank you. You too.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Ed Grondine. Wow. Gosh, I can't pick on anybody anymore.
Well, he just
I don't know.
flatly said no.
I'm getting soft in my old age. I'm gonna have to take it back with a vengeance here and put Michael Savage to shame.
Oh, would you now?
I don't know about all that. I'm gonna have to take it back with a vengeance and start yelling at these people.
Maybe you can pull a Don Imus.
Oh, a Don Imus. I heard about
man.
that. There is an example of liberalism to the extreme right there.
Well, didn't he really say something pretty offensive, though? I mean, I didn't hear it.
He said something that was offensive, but the problem is that even though he said something offensive that he shouldn't have said, the problem is he apologized for it, but people still want to take his left arm off.
Well, then it to Rush Limbaugh,
they want money. They want money.
The two aren't even in the same ballpark.
They want money. That's all it is.
It really seems to sound like that. I mean, first of all, okay, he shouldn't have said it.
No, but he apologized.
Well, what else can you do?
Exactly.
Really?
You can pay them money. That's what you can do.
Yeah.
Pay the money.
Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are spearheading this thing, and Don Imus.
We know what Al
deserves
Sharpton
one
is.
pass after Tawana Brawley with Al Sharpton and Town with Jesse Jackson. We all remember that from 1984.
Oh gosh,
don't
yeah.
we?
Oh yeah.
Town.
Yeah, he called New York City Town in the '84 election, expected to get the nomination.
Town.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
that's interesting.
I'm just like I said. I feel like I've been too just slack all the last few weeks, man. It's just been bad. I was on Joshua P. Warren's show on Saturday night, and I was on there with Terry
good,
James.
by the way.
And thank you.
Yeah.
And Verado, and there's just so many things I should have smacked Verado on, and I didn't.
You should have said Domo Arigato, Mr. Verado.
I thought about
when
that.
are you going to do that?
I'll do it next time.
All
I see
right.
him. But I mean, we're all friends
perfect.
here and everything. But Verado was doing things to intentionally try to start a fire, and none of it was working for him. And I think that bothered him a little bit. I think that bothered, I think Josh wanted to see more fireworks there. And, I was just kind of tired. I mean, I was on there for 3 hours. It was kind of tiring. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think I've lost some of my punch. I'm going to have to go and get that back.
Well, I mean, think about it, Scott. I mean, Christianity is a religion of peace. Unlike
That's right. A real religion of peace.
And I mean, maybe
this Islamo-fascist stuff. I mean,
don't know.
Anyway, we've got Danyon Brinkley next week.
Oh,
Talk about the tour.
Oh,
yeah, we'll talk about tour, but with Danyon Brinkley's some big stuff in the psychic community.
He is that,
and so he's coming on next week, and we'll talk more about that next week. I don't know I don't know exactly what he does. There's a movie out about him.
Oh yeah,
and he actually got struck by lightning. There's a movie out. I think it's called Touched by the Light or something like that. You familiar with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a movie about his life up until, I think his wife said, if you don't know what's happened since then, I think 1994 and beyond is what's covered after that in this new book that apparently they're going to send us. Hopefully we'll get it and be able to look at it because I just talked to her today. It was a rush to change schedule. Terry had to reschedule. Terry Bain did. So we'll be getting her later. But,
okay.
I don't know. We'll see what all's happened. But he apparently he had a near-death experience. He was one of Dr. Moody's people that he talked to about his experience.
Right.
And, you remember in the interview I asked him about Danyon and some of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
It'll be pretty cool. Actually, I got a little story about, since we were talking about impacts and comets and stuff like that. Uh-huh. And maybe you guys know or don't know. I don't know. But I am in a possession of an actual meteorite.
Oh, Lord.
That hit.
Go ahead.
I'm just looking at you.
Is it magnetic?
Well, I don't know. See, the thing is, it actually hit my grandfather's farm about 100 years ago.
I thought this was something you were trying to sell.
No. Yeah. No, I'm not going to sell that.
Only 1995.
No, it's like a family heirloom.
Trench Rock.
But I mean, basically, the thing about the story was, I mean, it was a heavy rainstorm, a thunder and lightning storm in midsummer. You know how storms get here, they just get very explosive. And my grandfather basically got some shelter under an overhang. And watch that, Scott.
I saw it.
Yeah,
so it's okay.
And basically, there was a big bolt of lightning that hit a tree, and split the tree basically in half. And my grandfather basically looked at it, and there was smoke, just a lot of smoke coming up, and the tree was split in two. Basically, it was just sitting there. And after the rain source subsided, he went up there, and sure enough, there was a glowing piece of rock from outer space sitting there in the tree. And he sat there for several hours because, I mean, it was hot for a long time after that. And it was really, really cool. I've never gotten it looked at by a scientist or anything like that. But what's really cool is that there are pieces of wood, actual pieces of wood that are fused in with the rock. And it's only about that big. Yeah, you listeners.
I was going to say, they're going to, that big.
It's probably, no, it's probably.
As big as his fist.
Yeah, well,
it's about the size of what? A tennis ball, maybe?
It's a little bit bigger than about the size of a
softball.
Yeah, it's about the size of a softball, I think. But it's really cool, I mean, it has nothing. Well, it's vaguely related to impacts.
You should see if it's magnetic, man.
I wonder, I should go get it tested because I don't know what the material is or anything like. Oh yeah, well maybe I should just sort of. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just homemade one of those Geiger counters. I'm sure I can find one online and it's
right.
polonium 213. Oh my gosh, I'll just shave a little off into some sushi when I want to. Okay, that's not right.
Well, anyway, so OutofDarknessTour.com. We would love to have you join us at the Out of Darkness Tour, and we're going to have to cancel the Out of Darkness Tour if we don't have some more people buying tickets. We will refund your money if you buy a ticket and we don't have it. So you lose nothing. It is in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's at the hotel airport there. Go to the website, check it out, www.outofdarknesstour.com. John Zaffis will be there, along with Bill Schneblin, ex-Vampire, the Wotu crew, Laura Placeres, Teresa Bain, author of Actual Factual Dracula, and we may have some more surprises. I think Joshua P. Warren may be stopping by for a little bit as well.
Special guest star.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a lot of fun if we can have it, but we just don't have enough money from ticket sales at this point in time to be able to rent the space and to fly John and Bill out and get everybody, accommodated in the hotel. But, the hotel's running a special deal if we do end up having this thing for you guys. It's $62 a night, I believe. And so that's a pretty reasonable deal. There's a restaurant inside the hotel, and there's a shuttle from the airport to the hotel and back.
Just like that. How easy.
That's right. I made it easy for people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we just need to, guys, if you're thinking about going, use that tax money in a good way. Come see our tour.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we're still going to give away a free ticket if you guys are interested. You can just write us at worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com and enter to win a free ticket to see the Out of Darkness Tour. That is if we have it at this point in time. We're not sure. It's looking a little grim. So we'd love to have this thing, and we do appreciate everyone that has bought a ticket so far. We're down into the teens of what we need sales-wise now, so we do have quite a few tickets that have been bought. And we would hate to have to cancel it for just a handful.
At the 11th hour.
Yeah, exactly. So please log on, www.outofdarknesstour.com, and buy your ticket through PayPal. It's quick, it's easy, it's safe, it's secure. And you can spend a day with me and Trent and Chuck and Dee and Laura and John Zaffis and Dr. Al Prophet and Terry Bain and Laura Placeres from Full Moon Radio. Just a whole bunch of craziness.
Just a whole plethora of paranormal.
A plethora of paranormal possibilities.
That's a plethora of paranormal. It's a paranormal posse.
It is.
That's
and,
horrible.
It is. And also join us for the Paranormal Cruise.
That's right.
We'll talk about that later. That's paranormalcruise.com. That's in October. Right now we want to see you guys out there. We know we have a lot of listeners, and we do appreciate you guys' support. And we would really like to see some more of your support by not only listening, but showing up for this event so we can have even more spectacular events in the future.
Because we want spectacular, because the key
what we're
word of
about.
Spectacular is spectacle, and that's what we like, spectacle.
Spectacular, exactly. So, but hey, so, if you get a chance, come out there and check that out, the www.outofdarknesstour.com.
Well, let's, okay, we talked about next week's guest. What do we have past that? And I'm going to play some music now.
You're going to play some music.
I am. Ready to rock.
Ready to rock and roll.
Okay, ready to rock.
Yeah, it's
Ready
working out. Why don't you press the button? You don't need a remote for that.
I know.
Better than remote.
Oh, really? Okay. Like I said, next week's Daniel Brinkley. I'll have more up on that. After that, April 23rd, we have Linda Alice Dewey, author of Aaron's Crossing, an inspiring true ghost story. Yeah, she's been warned. After that, the UFO Jesus connection, he's been warned as well. See, I'm going to get back into my the teeth are coming back out here, guys. UFO Jesus Connection by David Twitchell, followed by The Grand Design Exposed, John Daniel. That's a very interesting read. Followed by Bill Weiss, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, 23 Minutes in Hell.
23 Minutes in Hell.
Followed by our good friend Dr. Rich Anders in May.
Oh, he's returned.
Rich is coming back, followed by Brent Miller, also in May, The Horizon Project. Chuck, have you learned to RV yet?
He probably even
Chuck,
haven't looked
you
at
slack.
I have looked at it.
He has looked at it.
It's on my pile of.
It's on his to-do list.
Oh,
well, just remember,
put it at the top of the
gotta-
to-do.
You've got to be able to do this by May 28th, and don't be calling me May 27th, going, "Hey, man, I'm in Virginia, man. The DVD's at home." So you're going to have to learn to do this before May 28th, because we want to see if this stuff works.
That's right.
All right, guys. This is Jay Scott You're
only a little early.
No,
Aren't you a little bit early?
We've got
Scott?
approximately 1 minute. Here we go.
All right.
1 minute right there. Boom.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's pretty appropriate for the show, T-minus.
Exactly. All right. This is Jay Scott, your only JD DJ, soon to be Esquire when I'm sworn in, here on the Omnisound Radio 1 Network, Planet Paranormal Radio Network, KWSS. Thank you so much, guys, out there in Arizona, in Scottsdale, as well as Snoqualmie, Washington, and you guys out there listening in Omaha, Nebraska, and in various other places. I know I'm forgetting some of you, and I apologize. You can find all our affiliates on our website, worldoftheunexplained.com.
Well, thanks, guys. Anyway, and this is what we got there. This is Trent Lackey. We're coming to you from Kernersville, North Carolina. Small town where we talk about very big things. Chuck?
Mr. Chuck Browder.